Am I the a-hole for walking out on a date I didn't know I was on? My 39 male relationship of 11 years with my ex ended 3 and a bit years ago. I decided then that was the last relationship for me, and I didn't want a relationship again. Life isn't all that bad. For some reason though, people have started to get a bit weird about it, especially my colleagues, and mainly women. I can't work that one out, as the dudes I know are a lot more chill about it usually. They think they know better than me. Tell me I don't want to get lonely, am a great catch, have a lot to offer, etc. I had such a discussion like it a couple of weeks ago at work, particularly with one colleague, Susan, 30 female, who talks about it a lot. And I don't know why, because she's married. Susan is leaving, and because we're friends, I was going to meet her on Monday for a coffee/meal. So I turn up and she's not there. So I text her. As I do and I think I'm waiting, I see an old colleague, Amy, who both me and Susan used to work with in other jobs. I say hi to Amy and make small talk for a bit, and I say something like, I wonder where Susan is. Amy goes, I don't know what you mean. I thought the date was between us two. I then put 2 and 2 together and realize Susan set me up on a date without me realizing, and Amy thinking I know I'm on a date. So I say basically to Amy, sorry, but I'm leaving. Sorry, Susan wasted her time and go. I then ring Susan and she doesn't answer, so I send her a really angry text. Later I get a call from her asking what happened, and I told her. She ignored all my anger and went, so you walked out on Amy? What the heck? That's so not cool. You should have at least stayed. I ignored her and hung up. I got into work the next day, and everyone knows as she's already told them, and they said I shouldn't have gone mad, as Susan was only doing me a favor. One colleague in particular said he would have loved to go on a date with someone as hot as Amy. Presumably he's seen a picture then. I then get DIY therapy advice, that I'm wasting my life, shouldn't be lonely, need therapy, etc. I just told them to buzz off and stop watching Dr. Phil. Today, the atmosphere is really icy. Am I the a-hole for it all? Yeah, this does seem like HR territory. You shouldn't have to keep telling people to mind their freaking business. But that also requires you to STFU about your personal life to coworkers. Not the a-hole. There is another situation here that involves OP minding his business and colleagues around him talking about their spouses or partners. Then asking OP, are you married? And OP simply replying no. And then the same nosy colleagues continuing to push with seeing someone? And OP says no, and then colleagues keep pushing. Some people push and push. It's upsetting. That's 100% how it goes. Susan should mind her freaking business. Your colleagues should mind their own business and go on a date with Amy if they want to. Not the a-hole. That's your life. No one can force you into doing that. Good luck. Don't apologize. You did nothing wrong, and your anger towards Susan is normal. I have a somewhat similar situation as OP, although people have finally given up on me, thank heavens. I spent years telling people that my social life is not a democracy. I also pointed out to one especially determined lady that she was ruining any chance for me to hit it off with all the guys she was pushing, because I will not date someone when a third party is more interested in the relationship than I am. I think most people sincerely believe I would be happier in a relationship, which is ironic given how much they want to share all the problems and theirs with me. Yeah, imagine if OP, a man, set up his female colleague on a date with another man without her knowing. I would mention this scenario to any of your colleagues and see their reaction. It's just not cool, and OP had no idea. Not the a-hole. Go to HR. This is not appropriate for the workplace. She has no right to play matchmaker with coworkers. Right, and then slander him all over the workplace. The way this post read, it seemed like everyone was friends outside of work. But all of this is involving everyone inside the workplace. What's with all the relationship and life advice from people whose only shared relation is being employed? I do agree that Amy deserved better, like an explanation on how OP feels that Susan tricked the both of them. That would have been better than just walking out abruptly. Good thing that Amy is understanding and possibly willing to get a coffee as a legit meeting with OP. Not the a-hole. Edited to add an update. You're all right. Poor Amy had no idea at all. So I've just dropped her a line on her LinkedIn. It's the only contact details I have of her, and apologized for my reaction. Explained why, and said it's no reflection on her at all, that she didn't deserve that. Just heard back from Amy on LinkedIn, and she said I have nothing to apologize for, she totally understands, and said she's absolutely livid with Susan. I replied back thanking her for understanding. And I have no idea why, but I invited her for a coffee so we could catch up properly. I wasn't expecting to do that, but I did. Update: am I the a-hole for choosing my daughter over my wife? Original post: I, male 38, and my wife, female 44, got married 10 years ago. After 2 years of marriage, we had our first son, now 8 years old. It was perfect, our first child. He is such an amazing kid, smart, funny, and great at sports. My wife really loves him. They spend a lot of time together. She takes him everywhere with her. They have a really special bond. Well, that's what I thought. 6 years ago, we find out that we got pregnant again. I was really happy when I found out it's a girl. But my wife wasn't. She became cold towards her. She spends all her time with just our son. She started to push me to choose between our kids. There was no way to bring our daughter with us if we went to see a movie. Or I couldn't take her with me to our son's football game. If I wanted to spend time with my daughter, it couldn't be with my son or my wife around. I didn't understand that at all, why my wife didn't want our daughter around. As she grew up, I could see that my wife treats her differently. She never got her new clothes, always just some old stuff. Never took her anywhere with her. I tried to say something, but my wife always started to scream that she knows what's best for her and that our daughter was lying. I didn't want to start anything, so I always backed up. So I started to buy new clothes for her. I get her everything her brother had, but we promised each other that my wife won't find out. I know it wasn't the best, but I really love my wife and I don't want to lose her. I don't know why she acts like this. I hate it. It's not the woman I fell in love with. I gave my daughter key to her room so she can lock it. But last week, my wife got in, and she found all stuff I got for her, and she threw it out. I was at work at that time. When I came home from work, I found my stuff packed and my daughter was crying in her room. When I asked her what happened, she didn't say anything. So I find my wife in the kitchen, and we got into an argument. She told me to get my stuff, get out of the house, and take our daughter with me. She said she can see which woman I love more. In that moment, I realized what the problem was. My wife was jealous of her own daughter. I couldn't believe it. So I packed all things in the car and left. Now I'm at my parents' house and I'm trying to figure out what to do. I know I should have left much earlier, and now my stupidity just hurt my daughter. You need to get your son and daughter out of this situation before your wife does something even more drastic to him too. I'm working on it. Just a thought. Could you and your daughter go back to your house, pack her things up, and leave them on the front step? Why should your kids be displaced? Your wife is the problem. The house is mine, but my son was watching us argue, and I didn't want to cause bigger scene in front of him. So I left, but she has to move out until next week or she would be trespassing. You abandoning the house will not be in your favor though. You need a lawyer tomorrow, and possibly a temporary restraining order to protect yourself and your daughter and son. Already got a lawyer who's working on all of this. Not to cause paranoia, but if your wife is as heavily flipped on this as she is, you need to be cautious and do your due diligence to ensure your daughter and son are protected going forward. If your wife finds out that you are trying to take away her boy, she might cut and run. Especially if her response to you gifting new clothes to your daughter resulted in the overreaction she's giving you. Please enroll your daughter into therapy ASAP. Anytime you've been away from her and she's been left with your wife, it's probably not been a good time for her. And she will need help to process and hopefully overcome it. Your son as well. If she is jealous of your daughter, I wonder if she thinks you are jealous of your son. I truly hope she hasn't done something to or with your son that she fears you would want to do to or with your daughter. Just thinking this makes me sick, but that was the first thing that came to my mind after reading your post. And I was trying to understand the why in her behavior, not the a-hole. I really hope she didn't do anything. I don't get it why she's acting like this. I really never gave her a reason to be jealous. Understood. I just had to throw it out there for consideration. Sorry if I am the a-hole for it, but I've seen that happen before. Shudder. My mom was jealous of me when I was growing up, and I didn't realize it until after I was grown. She was a good mom, but small things made me realize it after the fact. It had affected my life in subtle and profound ways. But my family as a whole are great people, so I was able to deflect most of the feelings of inadequacy. What daughter doesn't want their mom to love them? Have you had contact with your son since you moved to your parents? Yes, he even came over and spent some time here. Update. So for everyone asking, my daughter is with me at my parents' house. And I'll pick up my son from school today and he's gonna stay with me. My lawyer got all papers prepared, and I'm ready to take all of this to court. I got in contact with police, and they will come and take my wife out of the house tomorrow. My neighbor called police on her for destroying my property and my car. She will probably spend some time in jail. My lawyer got all the evidence, and it's going to court. It took a few days for police to process all the stuff, but now they know about that. She's not supposed to come close to them. I know a lot of people asked how I couldn't see it before, or why I didn't leave. I joined the army when I was 21, and I was there until 28. I didn't spend a lot of time at home. I didn't have a choice to put my kids somewhere else. And when I left the army and I came home, I had to deal with mental issues I had. It's all good now, but she liked to use it against me most of the time. I didn't have a job before. House is mine just because my parents left it for me. My parents are not my biological parents, but I think about them as my real parents. They adopted me when I was 15. Before that, I was in foster home because of my father's abuse. They love my kids, and kids love them. I have to be careful because she accused me of cheating, and she has hurt herself before when I tried to leave. I know most people don't understand it, but please try to imagine how it was. I love my kids with my whole heart, and I'll do my best to make their lives normal again. They will always remember this, but I hope they will forgive me one day. Hey Opie, just wanted to tell you something, because I've been in this place as the daughter. Talk to your kids, especially your son, and make sure you all know what is happening. Make sure your son knows what's happening, and what has been going on with your daughter being disfavored for their entire lives. Make sure your daughter knows that you know and you care about what has been happening to her. Be clear with them. They may be kids, but I guarantee that they have felt this going on the whole time and have known it was wrong, but couldn't do anything to change it. Make sure they know that you're on their side. I also was the daughter. This is solid advice. I was the favorite child, whatever that means, with an abusive addict parent. But my older sisters hated me, up until we were all adults and I had my daughter. We had zero relationship. We are very close now, but it took 20 years. Now we all realize the damage it did to us all. They had each other, twins, but I felt like an only child my entire childhood. It even affected how we chose to have or not have children. None of us wanted kids until after we were pregnant. I was the first to have one, and I decided one child was plenty. I love my daughter so much, and I was scared I couldn't love another kid the same way. One of my sisters had a kid a couple years after me, and immediately knew she would have a second one shortly after, so they would be close in age. So she has 2 kiddos now, and her twin, the final sister, will never have children. So TLDR, I second that he should sit down with them both and explain everything. I am sure his son is also damaged and emotionally confused. I hope their relationship can recover. They are young, so they have that going for them. Opie, I was the daughter growing up. Your wife has narcissistic personality disorder. Please Google NPD mother, and you'll see a lot of the symptoms line up with how she treats the kids. I bring this up to tell you that you will have to address how this is affecting your son too. It looks like she loves him right now, but it's also a very destructive kind of love. Now that she can't treat your daughter badly, she will now use your son for her emotional tantrums. If she has a bad day, she'll make him responsible for making her feel better. Now she doesn't have you, she'll make him be more of a husband. My one regret in going no contact with my mother is that she ended up stealing my brother's life. I didn't know much about how NPD moms are back then. That once the scapegoat moves out, they turn the golden child into the scapegoat. She unilaterally decided she was moving in with him when he was living off campus during college. She makes him feel guilty having any kind of relationship with me. She's manipulative so that he can't grow in a way that would take him away from her as husband/son/emotional support. When he does, she'll convince him she's weak, vulnerable, and abandoned, so he feels bad for her and ends up choosing her over his own happiness. She's somehow conveniently sick or crying in self-pity. He is 35 years old now and has a very limited social life. Never dares to ask himself what he wants, and not surprisingly is chronically depressed. And the worst part is, it's harder for him to set boundaries and not fall for her manipulations because they've had such a loving relationship. It was easier for me to call it abuse because her behavior blatantly looked like it. Most of the time, she didn't even bother to manipulate me. She would just beat me, name call, tirades about what a terrible person I was. She used to accuse me of lying to my dad about her, that I was trying to get them divorced. She once also had me put my entire belongings in garbage bags and take it out to the trash. I was 7 at the time. I started daydreaming that I would have the courage to roll under moving car tires to stop how horrible I felt. As horrid as all of that probably sounds to you, the silver lining is it allowed me to see it as abuse and cut ties eventually. My brother cannot, because the manner of her abuse on him is seemingly not abusive. She's just helpless and wants to spend time with the son she loves, and it's kept him stuck his entire adult life. So please keep a hawk eye on your son's interactions as well. I wish my dad loved me enough to protect us, but he was also really narcissistic though. You're doing a good thing. Best of luck to all of you.